Let's bring in Matt Thomas. He's a sports radio host at 790 AM in Houston and the voice of the Houston Cougars men's basketball team. Matt Thomas on the Deseret First Credit Union Hotline. Matt, how you doing today?
Good morning, boys. Doing great. Thank you for having me on.
Awesome. You used to be in the Salt Lake market. You're in Houston. We figured that you're a fantastic guy to talk about what's going on right now with Big 12 expansion, special announcements, LJ Rose. So let's dive right in. What's up with this, quote, special announcement sent out by Houston? Because everybody, including BYU fans, think this is an invite to the Big 12.
I have some inside information for you. You ready for it?
Yeah.
It has absolutely nothing to do with the Big 12.
Then why send out special announcement?
So you're telling me that people go on social media and put crazy things out there for people to click and take a look at and talk about? No.
It's a crazy idea, I know.
I mean, guys, no, trust me when I because I did the exact same thing. I'm like, I call over and I was like, what are y'all doing? And you're like, don't worry, it's nothing about that. Because I said, and I talked to Ben Bagley about this yesterday off air. I said, if that was it, do you the conference, much less putting it on social media 30 days beforehand. So trust me when I tell you this. When you find out what this is, you're going to be like, oh, really? My alma mater, I love them, but, you know, it is what it is. Nothing to do with the conference.
So here in Provo, BYU fans everywhere, globally, talking about BYU and the possibility of going to the Big 12. What is the talk in Houston regarding the Red Cougars in the Big 12?
Well, it's so funny. You know, as I do a radio show, and I've been working with the University of Houston since coming back to Houston, you know, there's always been this thought of, well, the Big 12 doesn't want to expand. The whole thing about the conference championship game and being able to do it with 10 teams, I thought really damaged the hopes of anybody getting in. And there's always been this perceived notion that the University of Texas wants no part of the University of Houston because, frankly, if you're the University of Texas, if you are TCU, if you are Baylor, you can go use the fact that there's no Big 12 school in Houston to your advantage. Hey, I want to play college football. I want to play in the Big 12. Well, you can't do it in Houston, Texas. Now, all of a sudden, if the University of Houston gets into play, we've got a better chance of keeping a few more kids here than originally thought because you can play Big 12 football. So I've been talking about that for years. And then all of a sudden, guys, as you all aware of this, the ACC network comes into play last week. And I think the warning signs went up, the flags, whatever you want to call it. But I think panic hit the Big 12 and said, wait a minute, if we don't start putting together a progressive plan for a big network and to involve more than 10 teams, we're going to be on the outside looking in if there indeed is this next round of grand realignment. So they went from, not interested to, yeah, we'll probably talk about it. And then after that, guys, the most stunning part of it all is I've got the University of Texas chancellor and the president and the lieutenant governor and the governor backing the University of Houston into the Big 12 when I couldn't find a word from any of these guys 30 days ago. So if it sounds like I've got an elevated voice, it's because, frankly, I'm startled at all of this talk because for so many years, guys, there had been zero talk of expansion and, most importantly, zero talk of the University of Houston being one of those teams.
Matt Thomas of 790 AM in Houston, the Houston Cougar play-by-play for men's basketball is on BYU Sports Nation. What's the rhetoric regarding BYU, if any, in relation to Big 12 expansion in the Houston area?
You know, as far as I'm concerned, and look, I have a perspective because I used to live in Salt Lake City, obviously. I think BYU is a no-brainer for the Big 12. It carries the national cachet of your network. It carries, obviously, the LDS ramifications. It's an untapped part of the country. You know, there's always been this talk, and this is, you know, as I'm traveling and doing games and with Cincinnati and Memphis, there's other people that want in, you know, they're always saying, well, you know, look what we bring to the table. Well, Cincinnati, and it's a great city, it's a great school, they've had a lot of success, but it's not an area that's untapped for college football. I don't think Ohio State fan is all of a sudden going to turn their attention to the Big 12 because Cincinnati is in it. I think Cincinnati has got a huge positive in it that they would like to find a travel partner for West Virginia, but that's not the end-all because, let's face it, we're talking about a multi-million-dollar industry, not worried about the fact that Cincinnati and Morgantown are 4 hours away. I've been to both U of H BYU games when the two teams played football a couple of years ago. I think it's just a natural fit. And frankly, if you polled Houston Cougar fans in this market, the one school that probably gives them the most nerves about competitors in terms of who would get a potential invite if it goes just to two teams, I think it's way more conversation and buzz about BYU more so than, say, Cincinnati or Memphis.
Whether we thought Houston was going to be in the mix when this all started, they clearly are. So from your perspective, why do you believe the Houston Cougars deserve to be in the Big 12?
First of all, 15 years ago, or however long it was when the Big 12 came to pass, we were not ready. The facilities were terrible. The programs were not playing at a high level. There was no money being put in. The budgets were cut. It was just a tough place to be. The fan base was non-existent. So that made it an easy situation. Plus, you had no governmental help because their governor at the time, Ann Richards, was a Baylor grad and really wanted her school to be in. We now have support at the state level. We have influential backers. And frankly, gentlemen, our facilities are becoming more and more incredible by the day. 40,000-seat TD-ECU Stadium, which is just a terrific place for college football. It's been around a couple of years. Hofheinz Pavilion is going to get a redo. There's going to be a new baseball facility in terms of all the different, performance centers. The Cougar basketball team now has their own private facility. There will be a new football facility as well. And, oh, by the way, we're pretty good. The basketball team got to the NIT in Kelvin Sampson's second year. And then, obviously, we represented the Group of Five last year in the Peach Bowl victory against Florida State. So is it partly because the teams are doing better? Sure. And you got to strike when the iron's hot. But this has also been a process where money has come in, and most importantly, facilities. And, oh, by the way, we've got so many of the schools in our conference that we've spent decades competing with as members of the old Southwest Conference. So, it just seems like, and Texas Tech's been on board a little bit of this, obviously Texas. It just makes sense if you're going to try to stay true to your core teams. And the sexiness, frankly, of Memphis and Cincinnati just doesn't seem to be there. And obviously with the University of Houston, with so many great rivalries between the schools in the years past, it's a better fit. I'm just, like I said, it's been such a shock to me that the University of Houston went from an afterthought to now probably one of the top 2 or 3 contenders for a spot. It's been a pleasant and surprising change of philosophy the last couple of weeks or so.
Matt Thomas, sports radio host at 790 AM in Houston, helps out with the Astros. He's the Cougars. Houston Cougars play-by-play and men's hoops as well as on BYU Sports Nation. When we're all kind of guessing when this is going to go down, right? But when do you think the Big 12 will come up with a decision on this?
Yeah, honestly, guys, your guess is as good as mine. I would, since you asked, I'll say that maybe we'll know something by October 15th. I mean, that's just thrown on a random date. It would have been a lot faster, frankly, if the NCAA would not allow them to have a 10-team conference championship. But I will say this, as I said before, the ACC network coming into play, ESPN spending that money on that network, certainly I think has pushed things along. So it's just a conjecture at my point. I know that all the schools are going to be putting together plans. Frankly, I'm sure BYU's had a plan altogether. The thing that interests me the most out of this whole situation, beyond the timing of it, was the thought that BYU could only come in as a football member, which I thought was a huge surprise because if there's one thing the Big 12 has done, it's been very boastful about its basketball programs and certainly been very boastful about its non-revenue sports. And I was surprised that was even up for consideration. And like I said, we all know this, guys. Football drives this league. And so if BYU football can come in and make it a stronger league and help these teams, push themselves towards a potential national championship and a national playoff, so be it. So time, I don't know. But like I said, if I had a chance to vote on this, I think it'd be U of H and BYU and close the door and have a very effective Big 12.
Let's say that the Big 12 does invite Houston. How quickly do you think the Cougars could raise enough money to get out of the AAC?
That's funny. The money wouldn't be the issue. The thing that I keep hearing, guys, is it's a 26-month departure date, which first of all, that seems incredibly long. Second, and most importantly, you can't buy that out? I mean,
I thought it was $1 million a month.
Oh, yeah, that won't be an issue. If we get the invitation, boys, money can be found. The University of Houston hired Tom Herman for about $1 million a year last year, and that was the most they'd ever paid for a coach at the University of Houston.
That was worth it.
And then, we beat Louisville at Louisville, and then there's rumors of Tom Herman, league candidate at South Carolina. I'm like, wait a minute, he's only been here 5 weeks. All of a sudden, boys, surprisingly, they found money to get him to $3 million for this year, plus his assistant coaches. So their money can always be found. There are always deep pockets around it, and I don't know if that's a good or bad sign for college athletics, but it's just a reality. I don't think that will be the issue. I just hope the AAC would do that. And look, the AAC has been a good league, especially basketball-wise. From a football perspective, even though Temple played a lot better this year and Navy became relevant, it's still, and Memphis was good with Paxton Lynch. It's long term, we just can't fill the stadium up. There is no local buzz, and frankly, the television deal is just not very good for the conference.
As the men's basketball play-by-play for the Houston Cougars, we want to ask you about L.J. Rose, who yesterday or 2 days ago has announced that will grad transfer to BYU. What kind of player and person is L.J. Rose?
Good kid. His dad played on some early Phi Slamma Jamma teams at University of Houston in the early 80s. He just had one problem. He just can't stay healthy. He's had massive, massive foot problems since coming on. He was originally a Baylor kid and transferred out. His mother had had some health setbacks and wanted to be closer to home. Very highly recruited coming out of high school. Will do a nice job. He's a very smart guy. I think at some point, if he wanted to, he could become a coach. There's just, the only thing that holds him back is the fact that the feet have just not been able to keep him on the floor. So if he's healthy, he'll contribute. I don't know how many minutes he'd play for you, but ultimately he'd be a big help. The problem is he's just been spent way too much time in the physical therapy and getting things fixed as compared to being on the basketball court. It's kind of sad because he's a good kid.
Describe his game.
Pass distributor, for sure. On-court captain kind of play. Decent shooter. More of a chucker than more so a spot shooter. Wants to have the ball in his hands a lot of the time. Good free throw shooter. A decent defense. But you feel really safe when he's on the floor. You're not going to have silly turnovers. You're not going to have questionable decisions. You're not going to have to worry about the shot clock being down to 3 seconds with no formation. He's going to run an offense for you. So, like I said, and obviously Dave knowing his dad as well as he does, it'll be a good fit. It's going to be a question of, how careful and how easy will he take it in the offseason, getting on the floor, competing, so he can play 10, 15, 20 minutes a night for you.
Matt, great stuff. We appreciate the time, and best of luck. Hopefully we'll be talking soon as members of the Big 12. Who knows?
I will look forward to being on your show the day that happens.